And I know that a lot of you know Jacque and also know something about the Berkeley Pathways, but we're going to learn much more. And I'm asking Jacque to give us, first of all, a little background about her past. So to you, Jacque.
I'm a native of Berkeley. I grew up in Berkeley, and I grew up since the age of 1 in this house on Shattuck Avenue. And because I grew up here, I used a lot of the paths just to begin with. I would take, it was called the shortcut, but it's now called Oxford School Way pathway, just around the corner to get to school. And then down the block, I would take Terrace Walk to go down to take the red train that would go to the Oakland Mall and take the ferry boat to San Francisco. And then when Key System came in, I took the Key System train over to San Francisco to the terminal there. And then also on Saturdays, the neighborhood kids would gather along and we'd go down by the circle and then the path by the tunnel down to the Oaks Theater for a matinee for 10 cents. And so those were some of the paths I was most familiar with. But then as I got older, I began wandering the pathways. I'd go up from Spruce up Easter Way to Craigmont Rock to where they had the Easter service. And then there was a lot of paths around and I just explored them and I really enjoyed them. And then when I came back to Berkeley after being gone for 35 years, a week after the fire, I said, well, I'll explore them again. And I was very active in the hiking club, but they didn't want to hike in the city. They wanted to hike everywhere. And then there were various people who gave walks that I would go on, but there wasn't even a reliable map. And so I finally just was struggling with that. And then I learned that the city had hired an engineering firm called Luke Milani to study the pathways. And they came a report and they wanted well over 100,000 to repair all of the pathways, each pathway. And that was just exorbitant. So I wanted more information and all the rest. And then one day in North Berkeley Library, when it was open and there was a bulletin board, there was a sign that Ruth Armstrong Moscovitch put up, and she advertised that she was starting a new organization called Berkeley Path Wanderers Association. And then
Jacque, I'm going to, okay. So could you start us from the beginning? How was it that the paths were developed?
Oh, I'm going to tell you that, and what I'm going to do is read you what Paul Glenlund wrote when we first decided to do a map, and he wrote a brief history of Berkeley Pathways, which is right here. Would that be helpful? I hope so. If it doesn't, let me know. The city of Berkeley is unusually blessed with an extensive network of pedestrian pathways, named for the most part by the original land developers. The city has numbered the paths from 1 to 36. Most pathways are marked, so on. In the early 1900s, the hill area east and north of Berkeley were largely owned by private developers and were located outside the city limit. The extension of rail and streetcar lines into Berkeley made it feasible for the developers to build city a street system on which they open land and to offer lots for sale. By then, the hill area were ready for development. It became clear that the traditional straight line grids of streets was not appropriate. That was the hillside club women who really fought for the contours in the land.
Jackie, do you know how extensive the streetcar system was?
I have no clue. Extensive, I know that there was a 7 that went up along Euclid, and there was that came around to the circle. I think I know one line went to the end of Solano. I think that one went up all the way up Euclid and back. That's why Euclid is a double-sided. I don't know, but it was.
Did you used to ride those streetcars?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It was a 7-cent coin token that you'd put in for it, and they would all meet downtown Berkeley at Shattuck University, and that's how they would go.
Mm-hmm. And was there a connection to the ferry? Do you know?
Yes, it was the red train that went through the tunnel from the end of Solano all the way down. I think it went down to Alcatraz and went to the Oakland Mall. And there you would take the ferry, and the ferries and the trains were coordinated. So in this area, which north is called North Bray, where the fire station is, there was one of the parts of the development before Berkeley was, and they advertised that you could get to San Francisco in 30 minutes.
Pretty great. And then I guess it was after the war that the streetcars gave way to the buses.
No, well, yes, partly, but because of the Goodyear and those companies wanting them to be more extensive. But they did have the key system train that went over the bridge when it was completed in 36, and actually it stopped in the middle at what they call Goat Island and on to San Francisco. So there was the combination of the AC transit meeting with the key system train. And I'm not sure exactly about which company was when and where, but Berkeley had a pretty good transportation system at the time. And they developed the paths because the curved streets, like up where you are on Fairlawn, they didn't allow people to get easily going all the way around. They made straight cuts. That's why you have a Glendale path going through there that would go down to the transit lines, which
So
were.
do you think it was the transit lines that actually developed the beginnings of the pathways?
Well, yes, because there was, people didn't have cars back then in the early 20th century. They needed to depend on public transit, so that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. So tell us how you got interested and who was part of the founding group.
Well, I got interested because Ruth Armstrong Muscovich was interested, and then two of my friends, Eleanor Gibson and Pat DeVito, were interested. And the four of us were interested in seeing if we could develop do a survey of the pathways, see what needed to be done. And we met for a number of times on this table and then had a general meeting in May of 1998. So from there, at this meeting, Betty O showed up and 60 other people. And then we recruited people to be on a board. and then bylaws were written and officers were elected, and it developed from then. So it's the organization's a little bit over what, 22 years, something like that.
And how was it funded to revitalize the path?
Oh, all right. It was decided early on that we needed political clout rather than membership dues. So it was a $5 annual membership for $5. And then people made donations, and Betty Old made donations, and then nobody on the staff has ever been paid. So it was grants, grants from the university were obtained. Many donations were made, and that's how it was funded. So, and then we began selling different things related to the pathways.
And who did the actual work of revitalizing? Because the paths were in very, very bad shape.
Well, Rita said she volunteered on one of the paths. It was primarily Charlie Bowen and Steve Glazer who worked on it. And the initial group was started with some Boy Scouts, Eagle Scout projects, and they had to organize it and do it that way. But
did the fire department help?
The only time that the fire department really came through was because the Luke Milani study was done after the fire, and they made all sorts of recommendations, but they didn't fund it. So it was sweat labor for the most part. But then a FEMA grant was paid for the bottom of the upper half of Glendale Path to put concrete in there. But for most of it, it has been donations and dues that have paid for a lot of the.
And do you know how many miles actually exist?
How many
miles of paths?
That's I've been exploring that because you asked me that, and I emailed Jacob, who has done all of them, and he says the grand walk of paths is 15 miles, but that's a guesstimate, and I really don't know.
Why don't you tell us Jacob's story? I think that's so interesting.
About Jacob?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Jacob is actually a neighbor here and a very bright, young, ambitious man. And at the age of 11, he got some of his friends and they decided to do the Great Walk. And so they walked all the paths in one day. And he did that, and then he did it with some friends. And I don't know, maybe 25, 30 people have done the whole network in one day. And there's actually one scheduled this year, if you look at the newsletter, on September 18th, I think. But you'd have to look at the newsletter and be ambitious to do that.
So are there guided walks every so often?
Yes, at least the organization is trying to have at least 2 walks a month, and you'd have to look at the website to see when they are, but there is one scheduled there. There's been all sorts of walks, and people have led walks for kids, and they've had
and I understand that one of the paths is going to be the Jacque Ensign path. You want to tell us about that?
Oh, yes. That's the path that we took to go down to the Saturday matinee for 10 cents when I was a kid. And it was never named. And I said, well, they were wanting to honor myself, Ruth, Pat, and Eleanor. And so but some of the paths have not been named. And I said, I'll take that one. So that's how that happened.
So what do you think the future of the paths is?
Oh, I think the future of the paths is great because people have wanted to get out and they wanted to explore. And with this time of COVID, this is a wonderful way to spend meaningful time outside. I was at the top of Tamalpais steps one day and I was with Vivian actually. And we met some people from what was at Livermore. And they said, oh, how interesting this is. It's so different from Livermore. But that day anyhow, shall I tell them about it, Vivian? Okay. There's a path that's not on the map, and it's behind, oh, shoot. My age is showing. What's the name, Vivian?
It's up off of one of those paths.
It's off Tamalpais path. There's a path
right.
that goes up by, it goes up by Cornices Creek, but it's not a good path and it's not a city path and it's a private path and it's, oh, she's a FAB member.
Her name is Emily Benner and she lives.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and she tries to she leaves it open for the public, even that they respect her. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm not to do it again. It's not safe for me. But one of the things.
It was fun.
Yeah. I think what has happened with the map sales, we started out like at $2 a map. And then they sold out right away. And then we got to a second edition and that sold out right away. And so the pathways, the maps sold extremely well. And it provides income for the group. And the most important thing that people need, and especially I need, is that handrails, and that they put handrails along the pathways as a safety factor. And so they've just completed, I got a note, something about, they just completed another network and they've had walks just from, say from the Cornices or the Rose Garden all the way up to Grizzly Peak using paths with handrails, and that this makes them more accessible. And the city, because they are escape routes and important, they support us, but we only do the wooden paths, and the city out of their public works budget pays for the cement paths. I know one like Redwood Terrace was, with a lot of the landslide, was in horrible shape, and they've made that a lot safer recently. And,
is there any other city that has a network of paths like this?
Yes. I actually, Kensington had one already. El Cerrito has developed one. Mill Valley has one. There's one in San Francisco. There's one in Oakland. Many cities, even in Portland, there's a network of pathworks. Many cities have them, but I think Berkeley has done well by having a map that is easily available and encourages people to walk. And Berkeley people are health conscious and walkers. I think that's been one of the things that has been important here.
Where can people buy the map?
Well, you can buy them on Solano at Payne's or at Pegasus or at Berkeley Inks or out there. Thank you, Edna. LA has a extensive path to work. There was somebody from LA who came up and wrote a book about Berkeley paths. There've been path books on the paths written for years. And
Can people order the map through the website?
definitely. I just bought 10 for $90, or they're $10 a piece. So
Yeah, so it went from $2 to $10, inflation.
well, it was inflation, yeah, and yeah.
So
We've all,
do you have any personal stories connected with the past that you'd like to share with us?
well, I told, yes, Kate.
Oh, I was just, my cousin Rob Strong has been hearing. There's a really active group that get along beautifully with each other and have fun and are building paths, Rita was saying. And he said, he showed me a video of the Hillgard steps, which very extensive blocks. And fire escapes from the city will get these eucalyptus that are 3 feet wide. And
Yeah,
no handrails yet, but they plan to install. And I think it's very interesting. Tamalpais Path does not have a on the bottom, but it's a city path. The city hasn't gotten around.
well, they're all city paths. They're all city paths. And actually, there was a story on Tamalpais. Do you know the story about that one?
No, I only know about the topping of the redwood trees and
The what?
the topping of the redwood trees. The guy who
That's yeah.
tell the story.
Well, the woman at the top of the path living in the house next to Emily's wanted a better view. And so they topped the redwood trees and they happened to be on the path and city property, and the city fined them $40,000. So with the $40,000, they used that to build handrails along the top there. And that was it. But thank you for mentioning that there's crew both for building as well as maintenance, and that there's a group that meets periodically. They've had to postpone some of the recent ones because of COVID, but go on the website and you can join the cleanup. This just pleases me no end that people are wanting to volunteer and they're enjoying volunteering and feeling that they're something accomplished and that the city is supporting these efforts and their efforts to have them well marked. I mean, they've taken down signs. People have built overpass, and there's been a diplomatic crew who has gone and said, you know, this really is city property. We are going to put a path through here. Didn't your realtor show you that on the map, where was your property and where was the city's? But all the paths are city paths, and that none of them are, except the one Emily's is her own private property, but they are city paths. And they used to send crews in to clean them up, but they still may do that periodically, especially with fire concerns. But the Path Wanderers has done this, and there's been it pleases me no end that they've had a voluntary board that has rotated. And so they've got people, fresh blood on there, like Jacob was on there. He was a teenager and was on the
Okay.
board. And
That's so great that you have some young people coming in. So we are about out of time. So I want to thank you, Jacque, very, very much. This has been really fun and interesting. And if you're interested in posting the recording, Vivian can send it to you. And thank you all for coming. And we're out of time, so I'll say goodbye.
well, thank you, Anna. Thank you all. Thank you for coming. And do walk. It's good for you. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.